Hi there, I'm Amy Griffiths and I'm one of the journalists in Manx Radio's newsroom, and you're listening to Newscast.
Richard McNee.
Brett Martin.
Patrick Goff.
So you guys are back. I don't even know where to start really. I suppose how was it is the most obvious place.
I think I can speak for all of us and say it was an amazing experience. Our first view of Kilimanjaro was from the plane as we were coming into land at about 17,000 feet, and we were still looking up at the summit of the mountain, so we could see our task in front of us, and it just looked awesome. As a standalone mountain, it's an incredible place.
Did that make it more daunting though, as you're flying below the summit of it thinking, oh my gosh, so, yes. I had to climb this?
I think we were all thinking that.
Yeah, we definitely
It's going to be a long trek.
And how was the travel getting there as well? Because it's not exactly the most accessible place from little old the Isle of Man, is it?
Well, we were pretty lucky actually. Everything went really smoothly. 8 of us travelled together, and we had no delays or anything. And the other guy came in from by Istanbul, and he got there as well, all on time. So it went fine.
Brett, talk to me how you felt when you were at the bottom of the mountain then. What were sort of some of the feelings that were going through your mind ahead of the climb?
I think the primary one was, what have I let myself in for? It was, I didn't realise the sheer size of it. I mean, the actual national park, which is largely the volcano, is 3 times the size of the Isle of Man and 10 times higher than the highest point on the Isle of Man. So it was epic countryside. But the first day was great. You know, it lulls you into a bit of a false sense of security because you're going through rainforest and the paths are smooth, but it's kind of downhill from that point onwards. The countryside becomes much more rugged and challenging as you further up the mountain you go, until obviously when you get near the top it's a real sort of snow and sand basically is the best way of describing it.
Which I think in itself is because you go to Africa and you sort of assume that you're going to be dealing with extreme heat and that's going to be something, but actually the higher up you're getting is the other end of the spectrum, and it is that cold as well that you're having to deal with. Because what kind of temperatures were you facing, Patrick? Do you know?
Well, at the start it was about 30 degrees at the hottest in the jungle, and then at the top, what was it, minus 20. So it's a serious difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I mean, this is a classic girl question here, but how do you pack for that?
Oh, no, that's good. Well, you just take a lot of layers, and that way you can just easily take them off, and then you just layer up when you need to get warm. But it was a bit of a problem at night because you're dressing in so many layers at night. It's very uncomfortable. You're sleeping on rocks, that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's when you really did feel the cold at night times, definitely.
Well, Patrick, if we talk about the fact, so you didn't quite make it to the top because you unfortunately had some altitude sickness, didn't you? So talk to me about that and the impact that had on you.
Well, to cut a long story short, we were at, I can't remember the name of it, but the camp before base camp, we ate our tea, and that night I got very ill, you know, I won't go into too much detail, but like I had the flu sort of symptoms, that sort of stuff. Slept through the night, well, waking up, being ill during the night, got up the next day, they tested my oxygen, it was still low, but still at the point where we could move on. So we moved on to base camp, and then as we were moving to base camp, every 45 minutes to an hour I'm throwing up, and you could just tell it was really going, you know, pardon the pun, but downhill from that point, to be honest with you. But we pushed through, we got to base camp, I laid down for a few hours, still sick at that point, and then the guide basically told me you won't be able to summit. So at that point I was absolutely gutted, to be honest with you, absolutely gutted. But it got to the point where I was just getting a bit silly to carry on, and I did sort of agree with the guide. So they sent me down, and that's the thing is, the people are so nice. So they one of the guides escorted me down with a porter and was looking after me on the way down, because obviously my body was just destroyed at that point. And then we just basically got up the next morning early and then just continued to trek down the mountain. It took about, I don't know, from base camp, probably about 9 hours in total trekking, which wasn't very fun. Like, if you imagine just having the flu and then someone says you have to go trek 9 hours, it was grueling, to be honest with you, but it was good fun.
Yeah, and Brett, you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, I just want to come in on that because I think Patrick is kind of understating what he did on the day. We were, if you can imagine being in Laxey and waking up with severe illness, as he said, like flu-type symptoms, and not even being able to keep water down, and then persevering to the top of Snaefell before somebody said you can't go any further. So he gave it more than his best shot.
How did you, when you was feeling that poorly, how did you still manage to go that distance?
Well, I think the fact we were doing it in such a good team, everyone was being so positive, and what it meant to me to get to the top in terms of raising the money, doing it with Brett and the rest of Lucas's friends, thinking about Lucas, you know, all that sort of stuff did push me on. But yeah, it did get a bit silly to the point where firstly I couldn't keep food down, then I couldn't keep water down, and then you can't keep the altitude sickness tablets down, so it all just compounds and gets worse and worse. And it did just get to a point where it was like there was no other option but to go down, really. But yeah, just thinking about Lucas, thinking about the team all working together, that did drive me on to that point anyway.
And Looky would have just been proud of you for even trying, by the sounds of it, by the sounds of who he was as a person. The fact that you even made the decision to try and go up there would have been incredible.
Oh, certainly. I know we had him in the forefront of our minds constantly. We really did. And, you know, I'm sure that pushed the other guys up to the summit. You know, it can't not push you on, thinking about him, thinking about what he was thinking, his perspective on us at the time. He would have been absolutely up there cheering us on. So, yeah.
But for Brett and Richard, for you guys, making it to the top, what was it like at the summit?
It was absolutely incredible. I mean, it's a long climb up. It's about 4,000 vertical feet, and it took us 6.5 hours, and we left at 11 o'clock at night. So the best bit was we arrived at 5:45 in the morning, about 15 minutes before sunrise. So once we'd had our photos taken at the top, we then turned around and just stood there watching the sun come up. It was incredible, wasn't it? I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And you forgot about the temperature for a few minutes, but once you're standing around for a bit of time, you do remember how cold it was. So then we started the long trek down,
which was harder in many ways. At the top, we were taking our gloves off to take photographs, and you took your gloves off, and literally 20 seconds later, your hands were virtually frozen solid. I put a little memorial pebble on the just underneath the summit sign for Lucas. And I came out and I could hardly move my fingers. It was that bad. But once we started down, they wouldn't let us come down the same way as we'd gone up. We had to effectively go down what was just a giant shale bank, really, wasn't it? For twice the height of Snaefell, just to give it an Alman perspective. And you've got your heels digging in and you're sliding away and people are falling. And that was probably the toughest part of it all, I'd say.
And I think when you're going up, you've got a purpose, you've got a goal that you're working towards. When you're coming down, it's completely different because you've already achieved it, and so you're now just having to get back down to the bottom, aren't you? And it's quite a different psychological mindset to tackle, isn't it?
There was a sort of euphoria about it, I suppose, the fact that you got there and done it, and so the focus then is almost like, it's done, let's just finish this epic. So we kind of marched for it must have been about 12-13 miles we started off at 11 o'clock at night and went to the summit, and then we got back to base camp probably about 9-10 o'clock in the morning, and we stopped for a couple of hours, and then we just all took off and marched virtually all the way down to the rainforest, which was
it was a long day.
10 hours maybe.
And probably the only time you thought you might get an injury was actually coming down. It was tough coming down. I mean, you just learnt to slide your way down, but it was it was just a different experience completely. But you were just shattered and just wanted to get down by then.
I can imagine. So I suppose, I mean, apart from summiting, what was the highlight of the trip? I suppose for all of you, what were your highlights of it?
Well, mine, two things. One, the camaraderie, because not everyone knew everyone at the beginning, and we sort of met up a couple of times before, but everyone got on really well and was just trying to help each other to get to the top. The actual mountain, obviously there was summit day, but there was a part called the Barranco Wall, which is quite a famous, well-known part of the mountain, which is actually a bit more climbing. It's very steep, it's very slow, but it was we camped just below it the night before, so we could see what we had coming the next day, and it was probably as tough as it looked, but it was also great fun as well. And
also the satisfaction of then scaling that as well, isn't there, as well? And I think when you talk about the camaraderie, I think it's one of those things that an experience like this, it's inevitable that it's going to bond you, isn't it? Because you're all going through the same thing at the same time and experiencing it together, and immediately you have that commonality that you can't really get in any other way, in any other experience, quite so fast, maybe, as well. I don't know what you think about that, Brett.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Richard was alluding to the fact that not everybody knew everybody, and I probably only knew barely half of the people on it. There's a little bit of trepidation when you're going on something sort of profound as a trip like that with strangers, but everybody was so supportive and so helpful, and just great fun around the campfire, really. Again,
which is so important when you're doing something that's so physically and mentally draining. You really need to have that team around you, don't you, who can lift your spirits and who can help get you through it rather than kind of being more of a burden as well.
Yeah, I think we all had different things to bring to the party, really. I mean, Richard's organisational skills, Patrick's initiative in making it happen in the first place, and the younger members of the team who had lots of energy. And then there was me as the grandfather of the team, who everybody was thinking, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So, we all brought something to the party. So it was great, yeah.
And we haven't even got to mentioning yet the money that you have managed to raise, which is incredible. I think the last time I saw was around the £26,000 mark. Patrick, where are you up to at the moment? Do you know?
It's just under 26,500 currently, which is just unbelievable.
A staggering amount of money, a staggering amount. And how does it feel knowing that you've achieved the goal that you needed to raise that money?
It's absolutely amazing. I'm very proud, to be honest with you. We set the goal at 20,000 originally because the whole thing about this trip is go big, and we set the goal at 20,000. And I was thinking we could get there, but it's going to be tough. That is a massive total to hit, and to go far beyond that is it's surreal, really. It really is surreal.
And Brett, for you, I suppose, as the person who's going to be investing this into the charity and seeing how it's spent, how does it feel for you knowing that you've been able to contribute to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, the whole process has been amazing. I mean, we got 26,500 on Just Giving, as Patrick says, but we've received quite a few £100 direct to the charity as well. And it's not too late, if anybody's thinking about giving, the Just Giving pages are still open, I believe.
It is, yeah. Still open.
And obviously Looky's Aid has its own payment system through the website, so it'll make a profound difference. It's a very significant amount of money. It's a very large part of our last year's fundraising effort, and we want to deploy it in this next few months to help underprivileged youngsters.
Which is just brilliant in itself. And I suppose just finally, you've been down the mountain a couple of weeks now. How are you all feeling in terms of physically? Were there any issues that you had to recover from, or you're all okay?
I was fine. I was fine.
Yeah, I think this is a question for me, really. I mean, the muscles and all that sort of thing were fine, but physically my body was ruined, to be honest with you. I've only just pretty much got back up to full speed within the last couple of days. Just because obviously when you've been that ill, it's like anything. You can have the flu for a bit, but then you're still going to be you're not going to be at 100% for a few weeks after that. So, but yeah, I'm back up to speed now anyway, but it was a bit of a struggle for a few weeks after.
I have to say, I've never seen Patrick so ill. He's not a sickly person, and he did not look well when he had to go down. I will say fair play to him for the effort he put in to get to base camp on that day, because a lot of people would have given up way before he even did. And also, there's one other thing he should mention about his company. I'll let him do it.
Yeah. So recently, was it on Monday, Brett?
It was last week, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, sorry, last week. Yeah, last week. So my company I work for, Abacus, we do a charity deduction scheme where everyone takes a small portion of their salaries and puts it into a pot to donate to charity. And last year they chose Looky's Aid as the charity. So last week we presented a cheque to Brett for just over £7,000 as well. Wow. So to combine that with the Kilimanjaro effort, it's just amazing. It's amazing to see such a difference being made.
And all of that's thanks to Patrick, I should add. It was his initiative on both counts. And the primary objective of the climb was not necessarily to get to the top; it was to raise money for charity. It's easy to forget. I think Patrick was gutted about not getting to the top, but it was his efforts that put us there in the first place and allowed that money to be raised. So hats off to him.
Completely,
bro.
And how does that make you feel?
Oh, it means the
you've
world
achieved
to
that?
me. It means the absolute world to me to know that. Yeah, for me, I just think like, what would Lucas be thinking hearing his dad say that about me, and he'd be made up for me. He'd be proud of me. So I'm absolutely just over the moon with the effort.
And it may be too soon to ask this, but has it made you think about doing any other massive challenges in the future?
The thing is, I feel like I'm going to have to go back now to Kilimanjaro and get it nailed. So maybe give it a few years before I do that and build up to it. But yeah, there'll always be new challenges around the corner. We'll always go big and try raise money. Maybe late this year, maybe next year, something like that, I reckon.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio Newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.